The Cross Woman. She was serving as a waitress in a cocktail bar when Constantius met her. Well, sort of. Her name was Helena, and according to a man we shall shortly meet, Ambrose of Milan, she was a stabularia, which means stablemate or innkeeper. Barmaid seems close enough. He wasn't being rude. He said she was a bona stabularia, and bona means good. Despite this lowly background, she became a partner of Constantius, though they were probably never actually married, and gave birth to Constantine. Somewhere along the line, she became a Christian, and when Constantine became the sole emperor, he gave her unlimited funds to go to Jerusalem to find the relics of this faith. She had some get up and go, this old girl, and she got up and went at the age of 78. It has to be said that, as archaeological trips go, it was quite successful. As so many zealous Christians, mainly Americans, have done since, Helena went to Jerusalem to search for proof. And, as so many zealous Christians, almost exclusively Americans, have done since, she found it. Her archaeological expedition miraculously discovered the one true cross on which Jesus had died some 3 centuries earlier. They also found the nails of the crucifixion, the ropes used to tie Jesus to the cross, and the robe for which the soldiers gambled. Frankly, Helena makes Indiana Jones look positively incompetent. She is not the best pseudo-archaeologist, as they are known. That honour has to go to the late Ron Wyatt, an American whose discoveries apparently include Noah's Ark, Sodom and Gomorrah, Egyptian chariot wheels in the Red Sea, the site of Mount Sinai, a sword, possibly Goliath, relics from Solomon's Temple, and the Ark of the Covenant. Not bad for a former nurse anaesthetist with no archaeological training. Perhaps more substantially, she also founded several churches in Jerusalem and elsewhere in Palestine. According to Eusebius, she was responsible for the building of the Church of the Anastasis, i.e. resurrection, on the traditional site covering both the place of Jesus' crucifixion and the tomb where he lay. She also built the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, and a huge church called the Nia on the Mount of Olives. She may also have been responsible for the building of St. Catherine's Monastery. Returning from her archaeological dig in 326, she stopped at Constantinople, where she was involved in something a lot less pious. Between 15th of May and 17th of June in 326, Constantine had his eldest son, Crispus, arrested, interrogated, and then executed by poison. A month later, for reasons that are not clear, Helena urged her son to kill his wife, the Empress Fausta. She was left to die in an overheated bath, and their names were expunged from inscriptions and from the official histories. Helena, it seems, was good at both discoveries and disappearances. Astonishingly, despite this skullduggery, she was still made into a saint. She eventually moved to Rome, taking with her significant chunks of the cross. These were stored in the chapel of her private palace, and when she died, the building was converted by her son into a church, the Basilica of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem, which is actually in Rome. It gets its name from the fact that the floor of the church was covered with soil from Jerusalem. So, a little bit of Jerusalem set down in Rome. Anyway, talking of churches, the house of God. Constantine's support of Christianity meant that within the Roman Empire, the church could move out of people's houses and into proper buildings. In some parts of the empire, large houses had already been converted into churches. One such building, which was destroyed around 256 to 257, has been discovered in the frontier town of Dura Europos, on the banks of the Euphrates. That was a conversion, not a purpose-built structure, but it does have some of the features that were common once Christianity got proper planning permission. There were separate rooms for worship and for baptism, and a schoolroom for training Christians. But there was no special area for the Eucharist to be celebrated, no altar. And that is because the church imported that concept only in the time of Constantine. Now the church could build from scratch. The template it chose was the basilica, based on the Roman building where the ruler held his audiences. Usually this was a long rectangular room with an entrance on one of the long sides and a semicircular apse where the ruler sat on a raised platform. Christians made some alterations. First, wherever possible, they made the building run east-west. At the east end, they put the semicircular space, into which they put a table for the Eucharist and a chair on which the bishop could sit. Second, they moved the entrance to the opposite end, the western end. So, if you entered one of these basilicas, your eyes were immediately drawn along the space stretched out ahead to the table at the end and the bishop's throne. This was the most common form. And it demonstrates the enormous seismic change that had come over Christianity in the early 4th century. The faith had moved out of the home and into the judgment hall. In the house churches, the bishop had a chair, which he had to give up for the poor. But in Constantinople, he had a throne.